I didn't expect to do this, and I'm shocked that we're having to do this, but I can't do this show without mentioning the fact that it's been an unbelievably frustrating week for the quarterback prospects. The whole, across the board, just watching the news, watching some different situations, watching some of the play on the field. There's just been a lot of news and mostly frustrating in terms of the quarterback prospects in this class. So there are 5 things I want to get to real quickly before we bring on Stanford Steve and preview all 4 of the round 2 college football playoff games that kind of have jumped out to me that we've got to discuss. And trust me, we've got plenty of time between now and the last weekend in April, when the 2025 NFL draft is upon us, to get into all of these discussions, all of these player evaluations. But it's newsworthy, and it's been driving me crazy, sitting on the couch, traveling to visit family, as I'm getting information, as I'm watching games, I feel like we've got to touch on it. The number one thing that jumped out to me, and I know it's a big story, I just want to get it out there with Cam Ward, the situation that we had this weekend. And I'll preface it for those of you who don't know. Cam Ward, one of the top 2 quarterback prospects in this class, with Shedeur Sanders. Unbelievable season. We talked to Jim Nagy earlier, for the Senior Bowl executive director, probably the fastest rising prospect at any position in the entire class, what he's been able to do at Miami this year, coming in from Washington State after transferring previously from Incarnate Word. So love the fact that he's been able to get better at every stop. Love the fact that he's been able to kind of maximize his abilities this year at Miami. Played huge and big moments. Carried a Miami team with no defense to speak of. And I applaud him because of how hard he's worked to get to where he is. I also want people to understand this with Cam Ward. Every NFL scout I talk to, everyone who's evaluating these quarterbacks and this entire draft class, says the same types of things about him. Unbelievable leader, dedicated, demands excellence out of his teammates. That's what you're looking for in the quarterback position. Does it the right way. These are the quotes that I have ingrained in my head, everyone I've talked to. But then we've got this situation in the bowl game. And mind you, there's a lot of factors in it, whether quarterbacks or star players wind up playing. There's insurance policies that have to be taken out. There's, all right, if it's not the college football playoff game, should they even play? It's not new news when star players, projected first rounders, decide to not play in a game. That's not it's not breaking news anymore. It's been frustrating. I can remember back a few years ago, Ohio State, like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave didn't play, a whole slew of players. Even Jaden Daniels most recently didn't play in LSU's bowl game. That is normal. It's become the new norm, I should say. What's not normal is having a quarterback like Cam Ward, who's projected to be a potential top 5 pick. Every mock draft you look at, it's Shedeur and Cam, the top 2 quarterbacks, going somewhere in the top 5-7 picks, okay? Cam Ward deciding to sit out the second half of a bowl game. Again, I applaud him. I applaud Cam Ward for actually going out and playing. I think it's part of an NIL deal, the money these quarterbacks are making and star players are making, that there's a responsibility to a certain degree to go and the fan base is excited. The same people who supported you and have paid you a good amount of money want to see you play in a bowl game. And it's an exciting finish to the season to celebrate what you've been able to do. What's interesting to me, though, is this was predetermined. And I want people to understand that. I got a text the night before from someone who's in the know, from a really random source, and I won't get into it because I don't want to expose it. But it was a source who's in the know who got this information from a very unlikely person. But I got a text the night before the bowl game, and it said, hey, just a heads up, Cam Ward is probably only going to play a half of the game. He's probably going to sit out. And right away, I jumped it. I'm just going to be honest. I jumped it. I was like, no. Like, as a competitor, as a former quarterback, as a teammate who spent the first half of my entire life on team sports, that doesn't jive with me, right? Like, if you start a battle with your teammates, with your boys, with your brothers, and if it's I get it if they're up 3 touchdowns and now it's like, let's play it safe. We've got this under control. But I text back immediately. So you're telling me if it's a close game at halftime and they're in this battle that he's going to walk out and just, I'm done. I'm good. And he's like, I can't say for certain, but that's the information I'm getting. And so again, I appreciate that he played in the game, but when you're in, I think it was a 3-point game at halftime. It's a battle back and forth, right? And Miami, again, I want people to understand, Xavier Restrepo, a lot of their wide receivers, like a good majority of their star players on offense sat out the game, getting ready for the NFL. We're used to that. What was different about this is I can't remember a player predetermining I'm going to play in this game, but only for a half, no matter what the score is. And then we get to 56 seconds left, and now they're trailing, and Miami's got an opportunity to drive down the field. And they obviously the cameras are on him the whole time. And now, I mean, he was helping the backup quarterback who was in warm up, but he was just kind of flicking the ball back, catching it and flicking the ball back. He clearly was not even thinking about the possibility of going in for that final drive and trying to lead Miami to victory. Listen, I tweeted this out. I'm a realist. I understand that this is the climate today. I understand that he deserves credit for playing in this game, even a half, that he provided the Miami fan base and the boosters and supporters with something exciting, to look forward to in the bowl game. I understand he's protecting himself. I understand all of these aspects of it. And I'm really not even here to knock Cam Ward. And I want to make this perfectly clear. Cam Ward electing to not play in the second half of a game will have zero effect on where he winds up getting drafted. You can excuse it away. You understand that it's just today's college player and college environment, and every individual player has become its own little business, right? And so I do not foresee this being, he'll have to answer questions about it. And he'll have all these interviews with NFL teams, and they'll want to know why and what was the backstory. But I'm certain that he's going to make every team he interviews with comfortable with what went into that decision and why he made that decision. But I'm still allowed to be like, it's just different. It's not what I'm used to, and I don't like it. I can't like playing beer pong or darts or a pool, and if I've got a teammate, let alone 10 other guys, and you're in a back and forth battle, that was new to me. So I'm not going to hide from it, because there are people out there who are blasting him. There are people out there on their phone saying, you're crazy, it's horrible. And I saw the comments when I tweeted it, both sides screaming at me or with me. And I don't think this has to be something we scream at, but I do think it's fascinating. And it's something that you just kind of file away. And I think it's important in NFL scouts I talk to, like Gen Zers, all the comments, and it's just, entitlement, and everyone's a business and the brand and all sorts of things. Like, it's important that people in the league, and you're seeing it, coaches are different than they used to be. Like the Parcells, the Nick Sabans, like they're not wanting to coach in this environment anymore. Urban Meyer is very candid about how difficult the challenge is. It's just different. And so this is another example of how things have become different. And you've got to adjust with the times, but you also I'd wonder personally, what does this mean? Where are we going with all of this? I don't know. I guess my answer is I don't know. I know it's different, but I just wanted to touch on it. So that's number one. Number two, this one's more direct and to the point. Carson Beck made a bad decision to leave early. I texted a bunch of guys in the league, GMs, former GMs, scouts, a handful of different personnel people. Didn't get responses back from everybody, but got a bunch of responses back. One scout wrote back to me, one word answer: foolish. Carson Beck, remember, he's got the UCL injury. It's not as bad as some other injury, like the Brock Purdy injury was more severe, is my understanding. I'm not a doctor. I never pretend to be. But the bottom line is there's timeout, there's surgery, there's rehab, and there's also the body of work. And the body of work is he played great in certain moments. I thought he played better late in the season. I talked about that Ole Miss game that they lost. I thought he played better in that game, and it kind of was a springboard towards more playing within himself, not forcing things, understanding what he had to work with in terms of his receiving core that led the FBS in drops this season, an offensive line that was inconsistent with protection, a run game that was great at times but inconsistent as well. And I thought he improved. But he never this year played to the level that many of us expected him to play to. I talked about all season long, making his receivers work. Study Shedeur Sanders tape and how easy it is that he makes it on his receivers, catching on the run, hitting spots. Carson Beck, his receivers always seem to be working for the football. I thought he got better late in the season, as I said, but I don't think he's there yet. And you look at so many of these guys and the experience they had in college, the number of starts, how much better they played late in their career, grad transfers, playing at two different schools, whatever the situation may be. Jaden Daniels, two different schools, 56 starts or whatever it was. Bo Nix, the most starts in college football history at the time. Dylan Gabriel has now surpassed him. But Bo Nix coming in the league and the success they've had as rookies because they're more prepared. Carson Beck comes in now, not with that level, that number of starts, not in the 50, 60 start range, coming off a year in which he struggled and regressed in some ways. Even though he progressed towards the end, he regressed in some ways. I just don't know that he's ready. Why wouldn't you take this time, rehab in the offseason, come back with a better supporting cast? They got a lot of young wide receivers. I know they've recruited well at wide receiver from what I can tell. Their offensive line will be better. They'll be more balanced. Every response I got from people in the league was not to the level of foolish. That was the most damning, but it was all, he's making a mistake. It's just one more season, come back. And I want to educate you too. He's not going to be a first-round pick at quarterback. So now you get into the second round, or even third, some people might say. Second, third round. You're talking about in a 4-year rookie contract. The first round is going to be 5 years. The second round and beyond is 4 years, okay? Guaranteed money in a 4-year contract as a second, third round pick is in the range of like $5.5 million to the high, like the first pick of the second round. I think guaranteed money is $10 million. But assuming he's not going to be the first pick in the second round, it starts to drop there. The most likely range for him is $6 to $8 million guaranteed money. I don't know what his NIL is. I don't pay attention to that stuff. I wish everyone the best and get all the money you can, and hopefully you go out and you earn it for the people who support you. But I got to imagine that Georgia, he's as the starting quarterback. If he were to return next year, he's going to make around $2 million, maybe $3 million. I don't know. But whether it's equal pay as a rookie versus one more year at Georgia or taking a pay cut, he's not making, that's my whole point. He's not making significantly more money by going to the NFL. Yes, he speeds up getting that second contract, but in speeding it up, is he putting himself at a disadvantage in terms of being prepared if he's got to go start as a rookie, or when he does eventually become the starting quarterback in the NFL? If he does, is he as ready as he would be had he gone back for one more year at Georgia? And everyone I talked to, and my personal opinion is he's not going to be. So that to me was a mistake. I'm not used to ranting on my own for a while, but here we go. Number 3, Cam Ward was 1. Carson Beck was 2. Number 3, Shedeur Sanders. You know how much I love him. You know I love his competitiveness. I've been screaming all year that he's the best pure passer in this class. I just talked about he versus Carson Beck in terms of the tape, the accuracy, the touch, the delivering the ball, in perfect spots for receivers to create yards after the catch. I also think he's the toughest quarterback in this class. Like you can't make an argument to me that he's not, like, he's the highest level of toughness at the quarterback position. The hits he's taken behind an offensive line, especially a year ago in 2023, but even this year at times, and to bounce back up and to play through it the way he does is remarkable. He's a competitor. He's an absolute dog. I love so much about Shedeur's game. I'm also a realist. Not the biggest, not overly mobile, creates, extends, not a good runner. And his arm is good. It's solid, but it's not we're not talking about elite level arm strength. But I'm starting to get concerned, and that's my point, my third point today. I'm starting to get concerned, and I've seen it throughout his career, but just watching him in that bowl game, and I know the $18 million insurance policy and all those things, it wasn't about I'm worried about him getting injured before the NFL draft and all that. I'm just worried about his instincts in the pocket. He has such phenomenal instincts when extending plays, locating receivers down the field, knowing when to make throws, how to make throws, trajectory on throws. That's one of his special traits. But the counter to that, and it's hard, it's difficult to unpack mentally, right? Is that how can you be so instinctive with all of those things and still not understand where pressure's coming from, still not having great instincts dealing with pass rush, the pressure? Whether it's a blitz or a 4-man rush or a 3-man rush, whatever it is, his instincts concern me in the pocket. And I know part of it is he knows he's so much more talented than a lot of the guys he's playing against. And he knows he's got a receiver in Travis and some other good receivers, but a receiver in Travis Hunter, if I buy enough time, there's a chance we can do something special here, right? And Patrick Mahomes was the same way. There have been a lot of guys in college that have been able to get to the league and speed it up and play within the confines, if you will, of an offense, the construct. But you've also seen Caleb Williams is still struggling with that as a rookie, and there's a lot of other factors at play. But it was interesting. I got a text, and I won't share names, but this guy is someone I have talked to and trusted and had unbelievable deep conversations about the quarterback position for over a decade now. Played quarterback in the NFL, won a Super Bowl at quarterback in the NFL, knows what he's talking about. It was interesting. He texted me and said, people can say whatever they want about Sanders, but the pocket instincts are scary. They will stunt his growth big time. He's always waiting, quote unquote, to make a play, and his pocket instincts might get him killed, referring to the NFL. Just one person's opinion. But I don't know that it's quite to the extreme, but there's concern. And so just something to chew on. And again, we have months to get into it in the NFL draft, but you got Cam Ward sitting out the second half. You got Carson Beck making a decision that one scout called foolish to leave for the NFL draft instead of return to school for another year. You've got Shedeur Sanders just getting absolutely annihilated in that bowl game against BYU and holding on to the ball too long and not making the right decisions. And those are the three things that jumped out the most. Two more things. Point number 4, and this had really nothing to do with anything that happened on the field in the last week, but it's interesting. I've had multiple communications now, some solicited, more so unsolicited, with folks in the league about Quinn Ewers. And it's really gone on for about a month or so. But really, this past week, as I'm watching Cam Ward, I'm watching Carson Beck make his decision, I'm watching Shedeur Sanders struggle, and I'm just getting these random texts and kind of having conversations back and forth. Every single person I've talked to in the league, evaluators that are part of this process in the NFL draft, thinks that Quinn Ewers should grad transfer. Some people are like, he needs to return to Texas. That's not an option, folks. Quinn Ewers ain't returning to Texas. I got news for everyone. Let's just be real. It is Arch's time in Austin the second this season ends. Whether that it ends in a national championship with getting rings and hoisting a trophy, or if it ends in disappointment. When this season is over for Texas, it is Arch's time in Austin. So let's get that on the table. With that in mind, and I know Quinn has said he's leaving after this year and going to the NFL, I think he should reconsider. I look at guys like Michael Penix from Indiana to Washington. I look at Bo Nix from Auburn to Oregon. I look at Dylan Gabriel bouncing around a couple different places, UCF, Oklahoma, now Oregon. Look at Jaden Daniels, Arizona State to LSU. I think Quinn Ewers would benefit. Is he going to be better coached than what he has as Sark in Texas? No. Doesn't matter where he goes. Maybe there are a couple places out there he might get similar coaching level, whatever, but not going to get better coaching. Not going to have a better supporting cast. You can say the Texas receivers were great this year. They still are better than the vast majority of colleges out there. Not going to have better offensive line play. He's got a bunch of draftable offensive linemen in front of him. He's got a left tackle who could be the first draft pick at the offensive tackle position. But I think playing more, different environment, getting out of Austin, different system, it could bring out the best in him. More game experience. This has not been a good season for him by his standards. Great Michigan game, looked great early in the year, had the oblique injury, had the ankle injury, just has not, we've mentioned, I've talked about it all season long, has not looked like himself, does not look like 100% Quinn Ewers. I think they've had to protect him at times. I think he's protected himself at times. I think even when he lets it rip it's just not all there. And so I think another year would help Quinn Ewers. And I'm just going to throw that out there as well. And then finally, the fifth point, not really news, not part of the quarterback frustration unless you're Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Patriots, if they lose next week, number 1 overall pick. That's a departure. It was the Giants for a few weeks, the Raiders for a moment. I know Jacksonville was in the mix there for a little bit. But the Patriots don't need a quarterback. They've got their guy, Drake May. It's fascinating. I got my big blue sweatshirt on. Thank you, Jason Kalishman, lifelong friend, best friend in the world. He just became superintendent of Swampscott High Schools, and that's where I went to high school. So shout out to Jason. Thank you for the sweatshirt. But I was with Cal and his kids yesterday, and we were watching the Giants game. And it was kind of fun. Like I don't root for any teams, but as like a draft guy watching fans of an organization and how hard they were rooting for the Giants to win so the Patriots could get the number 1 pick. And that's where they are now. I got news for you. Like this should be Robert Kraft top on down. Drake May doesn't play in week 18. Sit him out. He's now left the game. He's now left 2 games with head injuries. Came right back in this past week. But like, you don't have an offensive line that can protect him. You don't have receivers. If you're the New England Patriots, you have 2 assets. It ain't the coaching staff. You got Drake May, and that's the hardest thing to do in the NFL is to find your quarterback. They got him. And you've got a cornerback who's an absolute shutdown star, and he left the game, I believe, with a concussion as well, Christian Gonzalez. You got 2 assets. Protect Drake May, protect Gonzalez, protect your 2 assets. They don't play. Go lose to Buffalo. Play some backups. And yeah, it sounds like we never concede. And certainly Gerard Mayo is not going to want to do this. But I think organizationally, let's get that first pick. Let's trade out if we can. Worst case, we get Travis Hunter, the best player in the draft. But to me, you sit your 2 stars. Buffalo comes in with their backups, probably a handful of them. And you don't try to lose, but you're certainly not going out of your way and putting your quarterback in harm's way. To me, it's a situation where you want to protect what you've got. You don't have much. Protect them. Patriots wind up with the number 1 pick. And if they do, then it gets fascinating because you've got the Raiders behind them, the Giants behind them. I just look down the line, all these different teams that need a quarterback potentially could trade up to that number 1 spot. And the fastest, most effective way, look how the Lions rebuilt with Brad Holmes. Stacking draft picks, hitting on draft picks. If you can get a first next year, obviously the first trading back this year, and like a second, and then a 5th, and all of a sudden now you got multiple first-round picks 2 years, and or multiple first and second-round picks 2 years in a row. That's how you support a young quarterback like Drake May. So that's going to be fascinating to watch in the final week of the season with some other playoff spots on the line. So here we go. That's it. That was my rant. The top 5 quarterback frustrations and newsworthy things. We've got Stanford Steve coming up in just a minute. Fired up to have him. And we've got an awesome slate of college football games in this round 2 of the college football playoff. And can't wait again for you to join us after the games. I keep wanting to say Saturday night. It's not Saturday night. It's Jan 1 after that final game. Georgia Notre Dame kicks off at 8:45. We'll be sitting here waiting, ready to go. Come join us live. We'll have instant reactions to everything we saw from the night before and throughout all 3 games that day.